So, hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for our virtual fireside chat with Shauna Clark. My name is Gina Gary, and I'm proud to be the director of events at Women in Governance since 2014. So, and now with no further ado, please welcome Norm Steinberg, co-chair of Women in Governance Board and Vice Chair of BFL Canada.
Thank you so much, Sergina. Wonderful to see so many hundreds of participants, and in particular, many from my former law firm, Norton Rose Fulbright, from literally around the world. Let me start by mentioning why I'm involved in women in governance with my good friends, Monique Leroux as co-chair, and of course, Caroline Codsi as our president and CEO. Many of you who know me know that I've always been passionate about the importance of diversity and inclusion. At my law firm, I chaired our Diversity and Inclusion Committee at Norton Rose Fulbright Canada and was a member of the Global Council of Diversity and Inclusion for many, many years. About 10 years ago, having lunch with Caroline Codsi, she mentioned to me this great idea of creating this organization. She still had another job, so this was kind of a diversion for her on the side of a table. And that's when I got involved. I thought, wow, this is really an important time to encourage women to join the C-suites, to mentor them, to get on boards. And so that's how I got involved with Caroline Codsi about 10 years ago. Since then, I retired from Norton Rose Fulbright a couple of years ago, but have joined many different boards, public, private, non-for-profit. And I find that in every one of these organizations, I'm involved in pushing the issue of diversity and inclusion. So as part of our ongoing program of Fireside Chats with Caroline, a few months ago, I had this brainwave. I know somebody fantastic that we ought to invite for one of these Fireside Chats. And of course, that was Shauna. A bit of background. How do I know Shauna? Well, about 10 years ago, when I served as global chair in Norton Rose, we were entering into secret negotiations with this great American law firm, Fulbright Jaworski. So I went down to Houston, and that's the first time that I met Shauna. She was the partner in charge of the most important office of Fulbright Jaworski, which was the Houston office. I have to say, I was immediately impressed. Shauna's leadership, warmth, and empathy. And everybody I met had only great things to say about Shauna. And as we got together, I think Shauna and I agreed, I think we bonded. You can rebut that later, Shauna, when you have your chance. But we had a common vision of what we thought our merged firm ought to look like in terms of having D&I as a core value, which I think you will talk about, during your discussion today. Shauna was also a respected leader in employment and labor law, and in fact, today is in charge of that practice in the US. I knew that Shauna was destined for greater positions. And of course, about a year ago, she was appointed as chair of the US part of the global firm and the global chair. Now, I think as I understand, Shauna is the only woman of color to chair a major American 200 law firm, in addition to being the chair of a global law firm and one of the biggest law firms in the world. But importantly, in my opinion, Shauna was appointed on the basis of her accomplishments and her leadership. So without further ado, let me introduce Shauna and of course, Caroline for a great discussion.
Thank you, Norm. And thanks for having me, Caroline.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here. Thank you, Norm, for this great introduction. It is indeed a pleasure to have been privileged to have your advice for the past decade. And what a great opportunity to meet Shauna. We've had the immense pleasure to speak last week, and it was so much fun. I felt like I've known her for years. And I think the huge number of people participating today speaks very highly to how well regarded Shauna is. So there's so much for us to talk about today. We will, of course, begin by talking about the your career, Shauna, your added obstacles that you may have encountered during your career. And then we will move into topics that are close to the mentoring program mandate. As you know, this workshop is part of four workshops in a year that the mentoring program offer to women who are looking to grow their career and hopefully reach the top jobs, yeah, and board assignments as well. And we will speak of negotiation skills and political abilities as well. And we'll touch upon the importance of DEI in the workplace. So let's begin by the beginning, your own career.
Sure.
And you've been at Norton Rose Fulbright for 28 years. You started as an intern. So tell us about, your career path. And if you could also touch upon if any mentors have changed the path of your career along the way.
Absolutely. And again, thank you so much for having me. And I'm so impressed with the work that you and the entire team at Women in Governance, the work that you're accomplishing. And I can tell you, just going forward, I will be a big supporter of this organization and your mission. So my career started in 1991 when I joined the firm as an intern, and I was later hired in 94. During the summer programs, when we were recruited, and there were just so many people, and you got to know everyone. I just fell in love with the firm, with the people. But when I started, I realized that I was the only African-American woman in the entire office, the only African-American lawyer in the entire office. And so while there were other women and there was another Black man, there was no one who looked like me. And so for that first year, I found it to be a very isolating experience. Mm-hmm. And in part because at the time I thought in order for me to be successful, I needed to have a mentor or sponsor who looked just like me. And since she wasn't there, then I didn't need to be there. And I confess, and I've shared this, that I just thought that there was another firm, a minority-owned firm. That's where I needed to be. The Lord didn't open any doors there. So I bloomed where I was planted. And I had an opportunity to step back and realize that in my naivety, I had failed to appreciate that I had the best sponsor anyone, woman, male, person of color or not, could ever have. He was one of the most powerful, influential partners in the entire firm at the time. And he gave me his stamp of approval, Bob Bambase. If you know me and if I've talked at all about my career, I can't not mention him because he was pivotal for me in my career. Now, I want to say it made me realize that Bob and I didn't go to drinks and we didn't hang out on the weekend. And that's what I was thinking at the time. Being 24 years old, I thought a mentor was essentially a girlfriend, someone to do fun things with, almost a therapist. Bambase he made it clear that he was committed to my success early on, but that didn't mean it was easy. I had to do what he told me to do. And that's one issue. Caroline, we talked about the importance of being a good protege. Today, it's difficult to find someone who will just do what you ask them to do. In the 90s, I didn't ask him why he was asking me to do what he wanted me to do, or why are you picking on me? Why do I have to go to this dinner and those guys don't have to go? And I never questioned that he was singling me out for any other reason but that it was for my benefit. And I did what he told me to do. I went where he told me to go. And now when I look back on that relationship, he was preparing me for the meetings when I would be the only Black woman in the boardroom. Because when he was inviting me to all of these dinners, I literally was probably for sure the youngest person by 25 years and the only Black woman. And I'm sitting at a table with all of these influential people. And I needed to make sure, he wanted to make sure I had the skills to not only be a good lawyer, a good practitioner. That was just expected. No one gives you credit for being an excellent lawyer. That's just the cost of admission. but to be successful, to be able to establish relationships with clients and with your colleagues, where you become a trusted advisor, both inside and outside of the organization. That takes time and practice. And he started that my first year. And since then, I've had many different, very important, very influential white men who've mentored me. And in turn, I have then mentored white males to partnership, white females, people of color, but I follow the roadmap that he set, that I make sure that I provide as many opportunities to be successful. But I'll tell you, not everyone is looking to accept those opportunities. And so in the words of some of my kids, when given the shot, you have to take it. And if you don't take it, then you can't then later complain that someone else is getting more opportunities than you've been given.
I remember, Shauna, you mentioned something really interesting to me when you were thinking of what is important when choosing a mentor, when deciding who would be the right fit, the right mentor for you. And that was, the only condition is that both of you have to be really interested in your success and your career development. All the rest is fluff. And so if you were going to wait, especially at the time, for a powerful Black woman to come and mentor you, you'd probably still be waiting.
Because I was waiting for me, right? I mean, I was waiting for me. And sometimes what we seek, we have the ability to become just for someone else. But absolutely. And that's what I think it trips us, particularly women, when, and I had this conversation with one of my friends over the holidays. She'd asked me to introduce her to powerful Black women, general counsels or C-suite individuals. And I said, absolutely, I will make the introduction to those I know, but are you limiting yourself? I said, because I can think of 3 people who you may not have anything in common with, but they can teach you everything you need to know about the next step in your career. I said, or you could tell me to stay in my lane and just give you what you've asked for. But I challenged her to think broader than that, because that's how I've lived that experience. And some people, I think the difficulty, Carolyn, is when you are a protege and your mentor is someone with whom you have very little in common, only that one critical component that both of you are interested and invested in your success, it means as a protege, you have to work harder to establish the relationship. You have to be willing that when he or she is unable to meet with you or cancels a meeting at the last minute, that's just a delayed conversation. That's just a delayed meeting. And you have to put more into that relationship in order to make you more comfortable. And that is finding things or issues or beliefs that you have in common. And considering we're all human, I know that after you get to know someone, it does not really matter whether you're on one side of the political spectrum or the other, you will find things other than that critical component, the 2 of you being invested in your success, other things that you are interested in or that you have in common. But it requires work. And there's a sense that, and I see this in the organization, there's a sense that the corporation or the firm should provide this relationship, that you should have this, everyone should have a sponsor. And I agree with that. I think that corporations and law firms should identify individuals who have the influence and the gravitas to help propel individuals to the next step. But at the end of the day, it's on each of us to make the effort to make those connections, because at the end of the day, you don't really want to go to bat for someone that you don't know, that you don't have any reason to put your time and effort in. For me, it was the providence of God with respect to Band-Aids, because he literally put his stamp of approval on me. And he was going around the firm. I was a first-year lawyer saying, have you met that Shauna Johnson? She's going to be our partner. Like literally calling people up. And so, but what was interesting, so these partners would come from New York. This is when we were a national firm. They would come from New York and just stop by and say, Band-Base was up, and he said, I had to come and meet you. So I'm Bill Bush. How are you? I'm fine, thank you. It's good to meet you. And so
I guess that's the difference between a mentor and a sponsor.
Absolutely. That sponsor goes, the sponsor, one of my very great friends, Gina Shishima, states that a sponsor literally puts you on his or her shoulders and carries you through. I mean, they have the wherewithal to do that. And so I model what he does. And so I have great relationships with people on our management committee or our committees. And so when I know they're in the office, when we're in the office, it's, when Daryl Lansdale was our managing partner, Daryl, I want to make sure Heather Sherrod, she's my right hand. Where Heather goes, I go. So we need to make sure Heather is happy. Or Richard Crumhouse, he's the global head of disputes. When he's in, it's like, I want to make sure you understand that Jessica Blanco just argued this motion for summary judgment for this great client and won. That's what we have to do. And so that's the sponsor's role. And it takes time out of our busy schedules and everything that we have, but it's important.
It's so important. And I think during the pandemic, probably more than ever, as we're all isolated in our homes here in Quebec, I know you're in Texas right now, we're in Montreal. Of course, there are people from all over Canada and the US on the call today. We're just coming out of curfew and we're going to be out of lockdown next week. So this whole sentiment of isolation, I think, makes it more important than ever to make sure that you can reach out to people, that you have a mentor, a sponsor, etc. Because all the informal conversations that used to take place at the water cooler, or when you would be pulled into a meeting that wasn't really a meeting you needed to be a part of.
Yes.
But you were there and you'd listen and you'd learn. So all this is gone. So I think more than ever, giving women an opportunity to have someone who can support them as a mentor, a sponsor, of course, that's within the organization. But I think it's more important than ever. And in the past 2 years, we've seen actually our mentoring program skyrocket. Well, first of all, because it became global. I guess it's one of the few advantages of the pandemic is that, being able to do things virtually. But because there is a true need. And as a Lebanese woman who immigrated to Canada myself, I have to say that just as you were saying, Shauna, if I was going to wait for a Lebanese woman, successful woman, to show me the way, I'd still be waiting. And like you, the white men have actually opened so many doors for me. And, especially knowing that there were the ones, and they still are, who are in positions of power and who can lead the way. But I make it a very important thing. It's an important role for me to be very vocal as a Lebanese woman so that I can inspire other younger up and coming women who are gonna, as we say, if she can see it, she can be it. So let's make ourselves as visible as we can. So Shauna, you've had a very successful career. You've been very well supported throughout your career, and you've managed to have 4 children who are today between the ages of 10 and 23. So I'm sure many women wonder, how can she have it all? How did she manage that?
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
I will tell you, it was just 25 years of putting myself last, frankly. And I don't want to give anyone the impression that we can't have it all. As someone said, but maybe not all at the same time. But for me, I recognize that there were sacrifices to be made and choices to be made. And I didn't hold the firm hostage, nor did I hold my husband hostage. I am starting now. I look back and I think, you know what, you could have helped me more. But here's one thing I thought about, and this is true for, I think, many women with successful or demanding careers and children. We have to show up just like the men on the team. And so if I'm presenting to a client with one of my colleagues at 7 a.m., at 7 a.m., I'm going to be there hair and makeup, everything, ready to go, just like my colleague. It's not his fault that his getting there for 7 meant maybe he took his shower at 6:15, grabbed his coffee, and he went on because his wife or someone else is there to take care of the kids. I made the choice that if I'm going to show up at 7 a.m., my morning has to start at 4:15. And yes, it's stressful. And, where's my notebook, or why did you move this, and all of this. And I tell folks all the time, do you know what it's like? I have to, it's an obstacle course. I have to maneuver around 5 different personalities in the morning. Each of them may be doing whatever, but that's my choice. And so I'm not angry, and nor do I feel as if the firm or the client or the audience owes me a gold star, because just like him, I was able to get there, even though I had all of this, because that's my life. That's how I organize it. But I made it a point, and the reason why I've been at Norton Rose Fulbright for 28 years is because the firm understood, even as a young lawyer, what my family meant to me. They knew it was God, my husband, my children, and then the firm. And I order my life along those priorities. And so I made my family just as important as I made the firm and our clients. So it was just as when I schedule a hearing or a trial on the schedule, and I make sure I am there for the hearing, I make sure I'm there for the client meeting, I would schedule the things that were important to the kids. And no one here, my kids and my husband didn't resent what I do or the firm. In fact, they're very, very proud of the firm. I remember I was trying this big case, and my daughters are, my kids are, I would voir dire, test the jury with my kids or give my opening statements. And I remember in this very difficult multi-plaintiff, very harsh discrimination case, I was giving the opening statement, and my daughter said, I want to work for the company. And I was like, okay, notwithstanding all these really difficult allegations, she wanted to work for this. It's like, okay, I think I'm going to win this trial, because I've convinced this 10-year-old that when she grows up, she wants to be a trucker. But at any rate, they are a part of the firm, and the firm is a part of my family. And so that's how I've made it work. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't have the same guilt that many people, I have guilt offerings. When I would travel, I would bring back all of this stuff. Like I could buy my app. Here you go. Here are those things. And to a certain extent, I still do that. I still have to bargain when I'm going to be away. I have a trip to London next week for a group supervisory board. And, I'm already talking to my 10-year-old about, what's going to happen when I'm not there. Mind you, my husband is retired. He is home every day, but that's, how we've ordered this family. I'm the primary caregiver, and that is a role that I cherish. And it's not the firm's fault or my client's fault that I've made those decisions. So now that I'm in my 50s, I am more comfortable with boundaries that I didn't have, that I wasn't comfortable setting, 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so life feels easier. The kids are older, but it's very difficult to balance it all. But I think good communication and setting clear expectations, I think that helps. But more than that, the world has changed.
Exactly. How did since the pandemic for you?
I'm sorry?
How did things affect you since the pandemic, both at home and at work?
Well, I will tell you, and I hope this is not taken the wrong way because of the devastation of the pandemic. But for me personally, because I didn't mind, staying home, and it was a relief as far I didn't have to travel as much. Caroline, before the pandemic, I literally was traveling 3 times, at least twice a week, but I was out with clients or firm meetings at least, 3 times a week, every week. And it was just exhausting. I was traveling so much that I remember once I was headed to the wrong airport and I missed my flight. And so it putting aside the devastation and all of the loss, being forced to sit still actually gave me an opportunity to exhale and to reorder my priorities. Mm-hmm. And so I don't understand how I was able to keep the pace I kept, but I do know myself well enough to know that I won't keep that pace going forward. But I think so many people have come to the same realization that
I think our new world is going to be very different. And let's hope, we can keep the best of both worlds and we don't go back to our old habits. Moving along, I really want an opportunity to speak about negotiation skills. Obviously, as a very skilled lawyer, you're top at that. But a lot of women will tell us that they are great and they're at ease negotiating for others, not so much when it comes to negotiating their own salaries. Yes. What do you say to that?
So here's what I say. Particularly to the women who are very good at negotiating on behalf of others, that is for me the foundation that makes me at this point comfortable negotiating on my behalf. Because when you have a track record of going to bat for others, you've built there's integrity around your requests. And the people who set comp will understand and appreciate that. The other point, though, it comes down to valuing what you bring to the organization. And there are certain situations where the organization may simply not value you. And that means you need to leave. There is an organization that will value you. But I know what I am great at, and I know the areas of opportunity. But the firm has set a value on certain things, certain metrics, and they are willing to compensate, and our remuneration programs are focused around those metrics. And so I make sure that I am excellent on those metrics. Sometimes we, as women and others, we value contributions that the organization doesn't value. And so I had this conversation with my husband when he's working. He was an executive and he's an international tax lawyer. And he was in his role, he was asked to help on this international pension that would require him to go to London for 3 times a week for a week. And we were talking. He's like, I don't think these other executives understand what I do. And I said, no, they understand what you do for that pension. They don't respect it. And they don't value. I said, they don't value it. You value it. And the people you're working for. And so this is not just a male. I said, right. Your executives, your CEO, your C-suite, they are all very sophisticated. And they were all men, very sophisticated men. They know what you're doing. They don't value it. So stop doing it. And he had to acknowledge that, well, he liked doing it. I mean, he's going to London for a week with no kids and no wife. He placed a lot of value on it. And so for us, when we're negotiating our either it's a position or whatever, we need to make sure that we clearly, with self-reflection, identify what we're good at and our performance. And then once that's done, it's a very simple ask. And I don't feel, I have made what some at the firm would say in years past, what they thought were outrageous ask. And one of my partners said, Shauna, I don't even understand how you could make that ask. And he said, and he was a very senior lawyer. He said, I would be blushing. I would be stumbling. Maybe it's because you're a litigator or I don't know. But I thought, well, just do what you think is appropriate. I mean, and let me say, they did not agree. But my compensation was awesome. But I made that ask, and it wasn't personal. And so sometimes we make it very personal. And I am not a pro at this. I've just come to this point in my life over the last 5 years. But I'll say it's because the firm has been very generous to me.
And that doesn't come on its own. I mean, if the firm has been very generous, it's because first of all, they value you. But do you feel like, do you have tools in terms of how do you prepare yourself for one of these conversations?
Know your audience. And so, we were talking, when I join a committee, that's why I was like a bit concerned about stepping into the global chair role without having spent a lot of time in the US chair role, because I didn't have an opportunity to really observe the other chairs. But know your audience, and you have to modulate your voice and fit your ask to the personality of the person. And so, that should be easy, because the person setting your compensation is probably your one level up supervisor. And over the year, you should have had opportunities to get to know that person and their style. There are certain people who want a very direct style. I want the same partner. I said, well, X, when you're having a conversation, you have to make a sandwich. You say something good, then you give them the meat, whatever is difficult, and then something else good. He's like, I don't want to do that. I just want to say it. And so if I were presenting to him, I would walk in and it would be just the facts, man. This is what I've done this year. And this is what I expect. This is what I think the firm values this. Here are my KPIs. I performed. But for someone like me that, I talk too much, I'm very expressive. I want to know the story. You could come in and you can embellish, and I'm going to hang on every word, every anecdote, because I like people and I like to engage. So preparing, first and foremost, you need to know your audience, and you prepare your ask based on that. And then at the same time, I prepare for our compensation meetings all year. I am constantly talking to different people, asking questions, and I am happy to get report cards from clients. How did I do? Some of us don't want to get any critical or constructive feedback. We just don't want that.
Right.
And if you don't want that, and if you avoid it, and so you've not received that all year, and you go in valuing yourself, but you've not seen the other side, then that's going to be a very difficult conversation, and it may not turn out. But for me, and I'll say negotiation and politics, all of that, we all need to have a tribe, a network. And so I have very good friends in the firm that I use very effectively on behalf of other people. I can call Richard Krumholz to say, Richard, I need to talk to you offline about X.
Yeah, well, if I may interrupt, I have a quick question for you, because I'm listening to you, and you're bold and you're strong, and you've been around, for a couple of decades,
long time.
Decades. Did you ever feel, maybe earlier in your career, imposter syndrome? Did you just begin with this boldness and self-confidence, or did it get built with time?
No, I didn't. I didn't know what imposter syndrome was until a client mentioned it a few years ago. So I didn't have that sense of, I am not good at what I do. That's not what. And in fact, I thought, after I tried my first case, I was looking at some of my partners thinking, I could go head to head with you in trying cases. But so that wasn't my issue. And I didn't, and the other two, I started with two white men. I never thought that they were better than me. Where I struggled was, I didn't feel, other than band base, I didn't feel that I had a group of people who would be willing to drop what they're doing and get in the trenches with me. But no, I didn't speak with the boldness that I speak today, because I had to earn that. I've always known to modulate my voice. What I have never failed to do is to speak up when I heard a partner or anyone disparaging someone else. I don't think that that's right. And, you know, my mom told me, look, if they're talking about someone, when you leave, they're talking about you. So I've never participated in that conversation. So for me, I struggled with the fact that the margin of error for Black women, particularly people of color and women, is so narrow. And so I was always afraid of making that mistake and I would get fired. And so I always, you know, I over prepared and all of that, and I modulated my voice, and I waited until I had something to say in conversations, until I had earned the respect of people. I've seen folks walk into the organization, you know, 2 months in, and they want to tell you what's wrong and why this person should be doing this and that. And I'm thinking, first of all, you don't know what you're talking about because you don't know these people. You don't know us. But second, what have you done to earn the voice you have? And so,
right. So I think that's a good segue to talking about political abilities. Before we do that, I just wanted to share a little anecdote from a couple of years ago. I went to Washington at the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, when Kristalina Georgieva was just nominated. And she was sharing how, you know, she was approached for the job. And she took a bit of time thinking, you know, is this something that I want to do? And she was in reflection. They made her an offer. And before she had time to come back to them with a decision, they actually sweetened the offer and said, oh, okay, she's taking her time. She's probably not happy with what we offered. And she was plenty happy with what she was getting in the first place. So I thought, you know, that was probably the easiest negotiation ever. So moving along to sorry, go ahead.
No. I just think that's awesome. But you're saying political relationships.
Yes. So the political abilities piece is extremely important because we have, you know, people at every level of an organization that don't necessarily know where the power lays and how to maneuver. And we all know that if you want to get ahead in your career, it's extremely important not only to be competent, but to know how to navigate. So what can you tell us about, you know, you were mentioning these people who would come and start making comments. They knew nothing about the firm. So what's your key takeaway about how to know how to maneuver political abilities?
So again, I think in the beginning, you just listen more than you speak. And I promise after a while, you will be able to discern what motivates individuals. There are certain individuals who are motivated by money, that's it. There are certain individuals who are motivated by power and prestige. There are some certain individuals that want none of that. And so once you learn what motivates the people around you, what are their interests, what they are most passionate about, then you become an ally to them in that issue, whatever it may be. You know, for me, I had a heart for associates and wanting people to be, you know, wanted equitable treatment across the firm. And so when Richard Krumholz was chair of our associate committee, he understood that. And so I would work closely with him on that issue. But there were other individuals who were more passionate about this issue or that. And so, but at the bottom line, once you find out what folks are motivated by and what they are interested in, then that's when servant leadership comes in. Then, and if this is not where you are sucking up or kissing up, how can you help someone with whatever they are dealing with or whatever project they have? It may be going to client pitch, but once you just offer yourself with no hidden agenda, because at this point, you're just doing what is good to build the organization, right? You have a need, I have capacity, I'm going to help you. And you may never have to help me again, but that is always going to pay dividends. And so that's what I've tried to do. I'm a keeper of secrets. I believe, and my my partners and our folks believe that I have good judgment when it comes to people issues, and people issues are very important. And so folks will come to me and I'll give them as much time as I give to a client to say, how can we best manage this situation? Or how can we best manage, this individual who's thinking about leaving, or we want to bring this person in. That's how you build a political network. And then you can have the offline conversations to say, my protege messed up on this project. I need you to give her another chance. And that's it, because we all make mistakes. And so I fight for women, people of color, to have the same opportunity and oxygen to bounce back from mistakes, because that's not always the case. But that means going in and putting yourself out there on behalf of people. But Caroline, one point I want to make that I've seen, and it disappoints me every time I see it. Women are at the table. We are at the table. And some of us do not use our voice at all. And I have had conversations brought to me after decisions have been made. And I would say, who's on a committee? And I've gone to ask some of my partners, like, why didn't you speak up? And if you are more concerned about keeping the little that you have, and you don't want to risk the little that you have, then don't take a role on a committee, because you're called to call balls and strikes and to speak back to power. And, the firm expects that from me. It used to be they were surprised by it, then they tolerated it, now they expect it. So but it didn't matter to me.
You're a pioneer, in essence.
But I'll tell you, but even as a senior associate at the firm, I was called in to investigate partner issues, because they know I'm a keeper of secrets. And I demonstrated my judgment early on, well before I was a partner. And I would sit in front of some of the most influential partners to say, I don't understand what you were thinking when you did that, or I don't understand what you were thinking. And I've had to, at one point, the firm would then, some of my partners would rely too much on my willingness to deliver bad news. And so I stopped saying that. It's like, no, I'm not gonna deliver this bad. You can't just use me like that. But you have to, if we are at the table and you are afraid to speak up for what's right, then leave. But it's not your time yet. You've not.
How do we make sure we have an inclusive culture that actually makes every voice heard? How do we ensure there's equity and everyone comfortable speaking up?
But I'll tell you, it's because all of the leaders and all of the people on the committee, you have to still talk to the folks you're supposedly representing. So that means having conversations in our law firm, having conversations with associates and counsel and senior counsel, and making sure you understand what concerns folks. I'll give you just one short example, because I know we're running out of time. We had made a decision at the firm, this is some years ago, different managing partner, our management committee had made a decision that we were not going to maybe increase salaries or something. And I went to drinks that night with my team, and everyone, I'm very, very proud of my team. I think I have the highest functioning team in the firm, who just happen to be very, very diverse. And I went to drinks that night with them, and they were complaining about comp, and I was shocked. So I left, and I sent a note to the CFO and the managing partner, the managing committee, said, look, I know what we talked about. I know what I voted, but I had a conversation, and my folks will call balls and strikes. We need to talk again. And the next day we had another big management committee meeting, and, some group said we shouldn't move. And a managing partner said, look, we talked about this. And at the beginning of when I had to speak, I said, I'm agnostic as to whether we go one way or the other. It doesn't matter how much time we spent on this issue yesterday. We need to always demonstrate to our people that we will pivot and be nimble and listen to them, even when a decision has already been made. And so as much time as we need to take, then, so everyone was frustrated that here, Shauna's opening this up again, but that's how I lead. And I knew everyone was upset, and I didn't do it. I did it because I feel passionate about that, about using my voice. Now, at the end of the day, we did end up, going with the associates and giving them what they wanted. But that wasn't it for me. I wasn't trying to get a win. I wanted to be able to go back to my folks to say, I heard you, we talked about it, we reconsidered it, but we're going to stay with this decision. And I would have been fine there. And so I think that's it. But you don't walk into an organization and you're ready to be on the management committee. You have to lay the foundation and find that confidence, that boldness. But if you don't have it, then don't take up a spot on those committees.
Right.
That's someone else who is willing. Like, I no longer care about being liked. Well, I don't think I've ever cared really about being liked, but now it doesn't, it used to hurt my feelings when I thought people misunderstood my motivations.
Right.
Now I never question that. And
when you're authentic, you're comfortable with, how people are going to receive what you're trying to do. We've been getting a lot of questions in the Q&A chat, so I'm very excited. I've asked a couple earlier, but there's one that I like here where someone is asking, how do you identify a sponsor in this online world that we've had since the pandemic? How can a sponsor identify you? That also, is
I'll tell you this. It's just as easy to send a note to someone to say, do you have 15 minutes for coffee, a virtual coffee? I just want to introduce myself to you. And that may seem like a cold call or it's awkward, but this is just, if you were in the office, that's what you would need to do. If you were in the coffee bar and you didn't know this executive, but every I think Zoom has made that a bit easier.
Right.
And you have to be an ogre to say to someone, no, I don't have 15 minutes. And so just have 15 minutes. Just if you give me 15 minutes for virtual coffee and have 3 questions. One, just your elevator speech that everyone should have. I didn't know what that was back in the day, but how do you just describe what you do in 30 seconds? And then just tell me about your career. I know, and I just want to understand how it is that you are where you are. And then thank you for your time. And I look forward, hopefully we can have another chat later. And then the next time it's another 15 minutes, or I just want to share something. And just that person will understand what you're doing. And so someone asked, how do I select a mentor? Here's what I did. All I wanted when I joined the firm, Fulbright and Jaworski, was for Frank Jones and Reagan Brown and Jim Sales and those guys to think I was a good trial lawyer, because that's what we were known for. I didn't care about making partner. I didn't care about any of that. All I wanted to do was be a good trial lawyer. So I found a sponsor, and they didn't even know they were a sponsor. I went to watch Reagan Brown pick a jury. And so sometimes people can sponsor you or mentor you and not have any conversations with you. You just watch what they do. So for me, I identified folks in the firm that I wanted to emulate their practice. For me, Band-Base and Steve Pfeiffer, I wanted to be like them with respect to, they had these great clients who just loved them, knew them, wanted to spend time with them. And so you identify someone in the organization whose professional beliefs, and this is not about, left, right wing, or your religion or any of that. What are those professional characteristics that you wish to emulate? And you identify those folks, and then you work on it. But it is literally planting seeds. And you have to
one thing you mentioned, Shauna, when we spoke last week that really resonated with me is to say, don't be shy to pick up the phone call and say, I need your help.
And we just don't want to do that. And I see that with women often. I am the queen of asking for help. And I tailor the ask depending on my audience. And so, but when people come to me to ask for help, if I can't give them the help, I'll sit and brainstorm and think, let's see who we can identify to help you. and I'm happy to make that introduction. And so just asking for help, I need your help, very easy. But here's the thing, Carolyn, and some folks will say, and it doesn't really, and it's probably true, that I am too open, I'm too transparent. But when you get to the point where you know that there is nothing anyone could judge you on, you know, my performance, I make mistakes, I have great wins, I have great victories, but I'm still Shauna Clark at the end of the day, then you don't mind sharing. Many folks are fearful of being vulnerable, of being, you know, I'm not a mountain, I'm not an island. I have a tribe of people who probably spend far more of their time helping Shauna Clark be Shauna Clark, listening to this or that, or helping.
And I think if you can actually show your vulnerability, makes you a lot more human, a lot more relatable. And I think that's how you can help people best. But we could speak for hours, Shauna, and it's unfortunately running. This has been so much fun.
It has been. Thank you so much, Carolyn.
Well, thank you, Shauna. It was really, you know, as much as we had fun together last week, preparing this, I loved our time together, and I'm sure everybody on the call was delighted to
I hope so.
Hear all your amazing insights. But I'd like now to invite another amazing woman who I admire a lot, Monique Leroux. She co-chairs our board with Norm Steinberg. She used to be the former chair and CEO of Desjardins Group, the first woman in Canada to head a major financial institution. She's also a senior advisor at Fiera Capital. Monique will do the concluding remarks.
Well, thank you so much. And what a great conversation. Congratulations to you, Shauna, because your professional, but also your personal life is absolutely amazing. And on behalf of all of us connected today, and we are more than 600 participants, a big, big thank you. And Caroline, you did a fantastic job to, you know, just stimulate the conversation. It is an international audience, and we have many participants from Quebec. So I will say a few words in French. Alors, pour les participantes du Québec, je dois vous dire que je me suis retrouvée dans les propos de Shauna, dans beaucoup d'éléments qu'elle a mentionnés. Et j'espère que c'est la même chose de votre côté et que vous pouvez donc intégrer plusieurs des conseils qu'elle nous a partagés aujourd'hui. You know, listening to the conversation, I was able to take note of all the learnings and the lessons. And I was able to, you know, think about myself. And even at my age, I'm really, you know, learning from what you said. And let me maybe indicate a few things that brought me to think about, you know, my past years. The first is it is important to be good at what you do, but relationship, network, emotional intelligence is as much important.
Yes.
The second thing that you said that is so true, you need to live with your own decisions. And this is something important that we need to have in mind. The third is all the learnings about negotiation skills and identify what you are good at, but at the same time, don't make it personal and be very comfortable to move forward with your ask. Mm-hmm. The fourth is knowing your audience. This is so true, and modulating your voice and also being very careful to listen. But when you have that, you can move forward. The fifth element that you mentioned is, in my view, probably one of the most important things if you want to continue to grow in an organization, how you can help others. And how you can bring, you know, all the people around you to build your own leadership and essentially take the leadership role. And I will conclude with something I loved about what you said. You said, I'm the queen of asking for help. Well, Shauna, I think that I'm the princess of asking the same thing. So for all of that today, a big thank you, congratulations, and a big round of applause.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much to both of you. And so in conclusion, there's a few slides before we leave each other, because of course, I have to thank our partners. We would not be able to hold events like this without the great support of our event partners. So Alexa Translations, Air Canada, Ivanhoe Cambridge, La Presse, and the Globe and Mail. Of course, our parity certification partners. I'd like to remind you that Women in Governance has launched in 2017 certification that has more than 70 organizations that have been certified, including Norton Rose in Canada and hopefully soon in the US as well. And we also have our governance training partners, the Caisse de dépôt and IGOP, the Institut sur la gouvernance d'organisations publiques et privées. And if we could go back to the slide right before, please. So our governance training partners and our mentoring program partners as well. So for anybody who's interested in joining our programs, we are in continuous recruitment for mentors and mentees. We've got people from all over the globe, in Canada, in the US, in Europe, even in the Middle East, participating in this program. The mentors and mentees that are currently listening to us will also be part of a separate networking little event right after this. So I'm really glad that they'll be able to participate in that. And if we can go to the next slide, I also want to say one very, very big thank you to someone from Norton Rose, New York, Chris Hilbert, who's been unbelievably helpful. Ilham, if you could go to the next slide, please. There we go. We have signed a historic partnership with the Girl Scouts of the USA. They are offering their vendors the opportunity to participate in the Fair Play Equal Pay certification, which is powered by Women in Governance. So this immense work in the United States would have never been possible without a few people. So I named our dear friend, Chris Hilbert at Norton Rose, who's been very helpful as well. I also want to mention Phyllis Yaffe, who used to be the Consul General of Canada in New York. She now sits on the board of Women in Governance. She's come back to Canada and she supported us so much that she's actually joined our board. And Catherine Loubier, the former Quebec government official in New York, who has left recently and replaced by Martine Hébert, that we're looking forward to working with. And so I want to thank again everyone who's made this possible. Shauna Clark, you've been phenomenal. Thank you to all your team at Norton Rose Fulbright for supporting this event. And I will leave you now with Laure Cohen-Van Delft, who is one of the initiators of this program, who's been involved with us since 2015. She'll be facilitating the breakout rooms. The rest of us will leave the conversation now, but the mentors and mentees in the program will be together in breakout rooms. So thank you, everyone. It was wonderful. We'll hope to see you all real soon. February 9th is our next event, and see you then. Thank you.